G'day and welcome to the GameDay Squad NRL Fantasy Show. I'm Dill, that's Stu, and we are the Fantasy Bros. We are back once again, partnering with GameDay Squad to bring you all you need to know to succeed in GDS Rugby League this season. It's Wednesday, you know what that means. Teamless Tuesdays have dropped, and it's time to take a deep dive into our round 20 squads. That's right, round 20, Stu. I cannot believe we're at the pointy end of the season. Only 8 rounds to go. We've got the GDS Cup in full swing. And we've got those both weekly and then season-long comps as well.
What's the GDS Cup, mate? Don't know what you're talking about. G'day, Dill. G'day, viewers. G'day, listeners. Mate, I'm sure we'll talk a bit about the GDS Cup shortly. But I'm just glad we're finally at round 20. I know that means we're getting closer and closer to the end of the season. But what it means is the buys are finally in that rear vision mirror. We don't have to worry about players, maybe backing up or not backing up from rep footy, last minute restings, or in Nathan Cleary's case, the last minute benching. And I know a lot of coaches, myself included, left him out of our teams only for him to go on and score a big, 70 or 80 point game and win a couple of people some weekly prizes. I know our good friend and workmate, the Wet Bandits, was a big successor of that decision, and he won the contender competition thanks to Nathan Cleary, and a lot of his competitors probably dropped Nathan Cleary late, but onwards and upwards, mate.
That's right. How did you end up with your round 19 results? Excuse me.
Just 2 top 20 finishes, so a bit of a fall from grace after a nice second in the champ competition in round 18, where I could bank a bit of cash for the upcoming English football competition that I don't know if I've ruined anything, but I know it might have been released on Discord. I'm not sure if that information has been released publicly yet, but sorry, Cal, if that's the case. But a lot of us are really eager and looking forward to that competition. There'll be a bit of an overlap. We'll have a lot of footy in terms of Australian football, both rugby league and AFL, but then some English football coming up as well. How are your results in round 19, mate? And the Classic Cup, are you still alive?
Yeah, look, I had a bit of a mixed bag across the 4, but my main focus, as you said, is that Classic Cup, as well as moving up the seasonal Classic Comp leader. So round 19, I finished 7th in Classic, which I was pretty happy with, actually. A couple of decisions, like you said, the Cleary decision, not playing Hines. I thought I might have bombed out of that Classic Cup, but I did defeat one of our good mates and friend of the show, Penrith. He was blowing up earlier in the week with a couple of tough matchups.
Yeah.
I think he referred to it as Djokovic playing Nadal and Federer on that one side of the draw. So I'm not sure whether I'm Federer or not, but I'm happy to take that crown. So I'm moving on to the next round of the Classic Cup. I'm also moving into the 20th position overall for the season in Classic Cup. And I've been doing a little bit of calculations. I know my maths is not great, so please bear with me, but I'm pretty sure I'm about 100 points off a prize card based on all of the movement between coaches across the 4 competitions. So I've made up a bit of ground there, and I think potentially I could be looking at maybe a second prize card if I can get into that sort of 100-point range in that Classic Cup. So there's plenty to play for over the next few rounds for sure.
I was going to say, mate, you already got yourself a prize card from the Starter Cup win. And Mr. Greedy over here wants another one. Not far from it, mate. A lot to play for. Double to play for, really, with that Classic Cup as well. We've got Melissa in the chat. G'day, Melissa. Yes, we've had a good week so far. Thank you. I hope you have as well. We got Sif Kanga in the building as always, and Cal has popped up as well, and he's called you the Cup Specialist.
Love it.
You're in the building doing your thing. Yes, we've got the Cup Specialist. And speaking of which, that result that Dill alluded to earlier was it round 4? Big win over Penrith there. So you're moving on to round 5. And if you get a win this week, what's that? A 2025 All-Star card. That'll be another one, will it?
Yeah, second one. Yeah. I'll be looking forward to that. That'll be unreal. So hopefully I've got a big matchup in round 5 and we can get the job done again. Lovely.
Righty.
Sorry, you go, mate. You go.
Definitely not too late to get started, is it? New users can still get on board to win some weekly prizes, and there's still so much to be won over the next few rounds. And we've even had another colleague at work join up during the week or last week, and he's starting to build out his starter squad, and he's challenger squad, his contender squad as well. I had a quick look at him today, and he's missing a few of those big guns, so I know he's tuning in. And if you're listening, mate, I think his team is called Is This AFL. An interesting team name, but we can steer you in the direction of some good tips this evening. Anyone else that wants to get involved, you can still win some fantastic cash and pack prizes. And even if it's just building that squad for next year, you've still got plenty of time to get involved. You can sign up using our code FBRL25, and you'll get 3 9-player common packs just for doing so. And maybe you can get involved in the next GDS Cup. See if you can knock Dill off his perch. But like I say, whenever he's doing well, the Fantasy Bros are doing well. 100%. So flying the flag for us, despite me being eliminated nice and early once again.
Right, and just before we move on, it's a massive week for rugby league fans as well. I know tomorrow's a big day. We've got Rugby League 26 being released. So Big Ant doing some good stuff there for Rugby League. We've been keeping an eye on all the player ratings and comparing that to our fantasy stats, and a couple of interesting player ratings there. But big shout out to Big Ant if they need a sponsor and they want to jump on board and sponsor the show and give us a bit of a hands-on. That'd be unreal. We're not affiliated with them yet, but Big Ant, if you're watching, mate, get down and get involved with us.
You beauty.
All righty, let's jump into the show, shall we? Straight into it. Let's get into the hooker position and talk through some of the big plays of the week. So I think there's a few different options that we can talk about, but who are you going with first?
Yeah, I think we finally found someone reliable for that hooker position. And that man is Blake Brayley. We've spoken about him a lot on this show, but it was really because of his reliability, his consistency for those sort of 50 to 55 point scores, which is, what the hooker position, we're really grateful if we were getting 50 or 55 points from the hooker. But look, he has just absolutely ignited his running game, and that's had a massive impact on his overall fantasy score. And he's had a big impact on some of the playmakers around him as well. We saw a massive game from Nico Hines in the weekend just gone, and it was no secret that was off the back of a lot of really good things that Blake Brayley was doing. So no longer is he, he's still making his 45 tackles a game, but he's not just passing off the deck anymore. He's running the footy a lot, and he's had scores of 76, 42, 70, and 90 in his past month. So if you can run out a hooker who's definitely going to be making those 45 tackles and not miss many at all, but with that added upside of, what he's definitely added to his game in the past month, and it's obviously working, so he's keeping that as part of his game. I think he's a great play. And look, we know how good Harry Grant is in terms of actual on-field rugby league, but for fantasy, Blake Brayley's getting it done in all categories for me.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. I'm following that Brayley train based on, like you said, his running meters, stepping up his game over the past month or so. Those running meters taking a big step forward. He's averaging closer to 80 per game. I think he's had a couple of hundreds there as well, which is much better than what he has in the past. As well as that, his tackle break average is also increased from 1 per game that we've seen throughout the season to 3 per game now over the last sort of month or so. So I think that's a big result of that running game as well, that he's able to break those tackles. The other two players that I really like is both JMK and Harry Grant as well. They're both getting back to their best. JMK is starting to get that 80-minute role that we were hoping for a little bit earlier in the season when we tossed his name around there. And then Grant averaging 50 across the last 3 club games that he's played, and then his big couple of games in Origin as well.
Yeah.
The concern for me, though, is both of them come up against some pretty good defenses in the hooker position. Manly and the Cowboys, they've limited the hookers in the past 5 rounds to only 38 points each, whereas I think Brayley's got a much better matchup this week. So I'll be sticking with Brayley as well based on that. But I think Harry Grant and JMK will be in and around the area, and I'll keep keeping an eye on them, because the other thing is that really the Storm have sort of picked up their game now. And I'll talk about a number of Storm players, as will you, I'm sure, that they're really making their run now to the finals, which we know that they have it in them. And, they've probably played a bit of a underdog sort of, or under the radar type game for most of the season. And they're just sort of busting out now. So, yeah, I think Grant will be in and around my squad most of the next 8 rounds too.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, just a quick off-the-cuff stat here for you. A bit of a guess for you, but a really interesting stat for our viewers as well. In terms of missed tackles, Harry Grant and Blake Brayley, guess who's made more missed tackles this season?
Well, it has to be Harry Grant.
It's Blake Brayley, but Blake Brayley has played 7 more matches and it's only one extra missed tackle. So
wow.
41 missed tackles in 17 games. Technically more than Harry Grant, but certainly not on a per game basis. 40 missed tackles in just 10 games for Harry Grant. So when we talk about tackle efficiency and why we rely on Blake Brayley a little bit more, it's because Harry Grant gets so many of those demerits that can bring a really good score down to a pretty good score or an average score. So really interesting stat there. Wow. 7 games less, but the same amount of missed tackles. There you go.
Insane. Yep. So let's roll with Brayley. Alrighty, on to the middles, and a bit of an interesting one for the middles this week. We have no Haas and we have no Yo, so 2 of our probably stalwarts in the front there. So what are you looking at then in terms of your middle rotation? Are you going to just run the 3, or are you going to still look at maybe that 4th option as well on the bench?
Oh, mate, how good would it be to have Haas and Yo there and just roll out those 2 and Terrell May and just move on. The middle forward is getting worse and worse every week, it looks like. And I think that might be a bit of, a couple of reasons. A lot of these boys played Origin. Some have been playing through injury. But you can tell the minutes and the collisions and a really close season is taking its toll on some of those big boys. And we're not really getting some massive scores, and even some of those big scores are coming down from a lot of those guys. So for me, I'm going to look for some more upside on the edges, some guys who might be a little bit more rested but have some more attacking opportunity, when teams are showing signs of weakness or, fatigue, or when they've got a few troops out through injury. So, yeah, just the 3 middles for me. I think everyone will be locking in Terrell May. I know our colleague is at AFL, that's his team name, doesn't own a Terrell May card. So I think he'll be itching to get his hands on one. I think he's thrown a few trades up already on the transfer market if anyone wants to throw him a bone and give him a Terrell May card. But I understand if you don't want to, because he's a big AFL fan and he's even got it in his team name. But, mate, other than that, it's pretty tough finding those other two players. And I think I'm just going to look for 2 guys that I see are fairly reliable. And the first guy there is Aaron Clark. I think I might play safe with him. He's been really good all year. He's been talked about, one of the best purchases of the season. And certainly he's been really, really good for your boys there at the Warriors. He might not get those big 70-point scores that Haas or Terrell May can, but what he will get you is that reliable 50 or 55 points. And in the middle forward position, which is without Haas and Yo this week, I'm pretty happy to take that score.
Yeah, nice. I think I might have dropped out, or you might have dropped out there. I'm not sure, but I think we're all good now. So I agree.
May is playing Clark as well, are you?
Yeah, I'm playing Clark as well for the same reasons. He's got that safe floor. He's got that a pretty similar ceiling. He's running that 1 point per game pretty much, 1 point per minute that we expect, but then also going above that where possible. And so he's averaging about 62 minutes on the field and 62 points as a result of that. So I'm pretty happy to lock and load that again. The Warriors are also playing the Knights this week, which is a repeat of round 8. And during that game, Clark scored 75.5 GDS points in 64 minutes. So I'm happy to go with Clark. And then May, obviously, is also that set and forget for me. There's not really a need to analyze too much around what May does. So I'm pretty happy with that. My tough decision comes in whether I'm going to play Max King or whether I go with White. Both, really sort of warmed up to that starting prop spot for their respective clubs. And Max King, obviously, because of that, had a massive Origin series as well. He continues to have a point per minute output as well, and even slightly going above that at times, which is good to see. So I'm pretty happy to run with the sort of 55 average from King across his 50-odd minutes. And that's obviously built on the base stats from Max King, but then he's also got that that opportunity to cross the line. We've seen that a couple of times this season from Maxi King. White, on the other hand, I'm really keen on as well. I know he's had a big couple of games the last few weeks. It may be affected by Origin a little bit. We saw 2 games of 53 minutes and then 1 game of 73 minutes a couple of weeks ago. So just not quite sure where that minutes is going to end up again. Maybe it's back more to that 60th. But as a result of those 3 games there, he's averaging 66 GDS points, which is one of the better middle averages across the last sort of month or so. So as I said, it's Origin affected, but there's definitely an opportunity there to play White. I'm just leaning King just based on the matchup at the moment. The stats aren't very different in terms of what the Sharks allow and what the Dragons allow. But I just think potentially it's probably going to be a dog's game here for, up against the Dragons. I think they've got a lot to prove, and they'll want to make sure that they solidify themselves at the top. And I think that's going to be led by King and a few others that I'm looking to play as well.
Yeah, right. I don't mind that shout. I'm going the way of Naf White over him, and the reason for that is, I really like Naf White, what he's done over the last few weeks. I know the Roosters have had a number of forwards out through Origin and injuries and that sort of thing, but they had a lot of blokes back on deck last week, and he still pumped out a really nice, I think it was a 57-point score. He had a 77 and a 67 before that as well. And he just gets through a lot of work, and he doesn't mind carting the ball up and really rip it in for the team. The issue with Max King that I see is they've got that 4-forward bench, although that does include Bailey Hayward, who obviously does play a little bit through the middle as well. I'm just not sure if we can see Max King getting back to 60 minutes like he had partway through the season. He was getting some sort of mid-50s as well. He's had a 45 and a 47 in his last couple of matches as well. I know that could be partially through to, some resting through Origin, but he did only play those 23 or 25 minutes in games 2 and game 3. So without Galvin on the bench anymore and sort of just having that swap for a hooker or a half, they've got that extra forward on the bench and a middle forward in that as well. So if the Dogs are up, and they very well may be against a Dragons team that is low on forward troops themselves and pretty brittle there through the middle, then it just might be a minute thing. And if he's not on the field, he's not going to get those points. But if Maxi King sees the minutes, he's one of the safer guys going at just above that 1 ppm. So if you've got a high rarity card in a challenger or a champion team, I'd go the upside there for White. But a bit of a safe play in sort of a classic or a starter. Maxi King will get a job done for sure.
Yeah. And just on sort of our bench rotation as well. So we're talking about playing just the 3 middles. In the past, we have talked about potentially playing a 4th or even 5th middle on our bench spots. So just a reminder to all the new players or new coaches that you've got 2 bench spots there for the forwards, and you can play a combination of hooker, middle, or edge there. Usually we saw some upside from the middles being a little bit more consistent, but we're sort of leaning more towards edges for their attacking upside and their ceiling. So we'll be playing 2 extra edges in this, and we recommend probably going that way as well, unless you see some upside and maybe a second hooker and playing maybe a second hooker there if you think their matchup is decent. But we'll be going with 2 extra edges. I think that's the way you're going to lean as well. Isn't that right, Stu?
Yeah, that's right. Do you want to get into that position now since we've got a few more to talk about?
And just before we do, Melissa asked a question. How many did Harry Grant miss through Origin? He missed 13 tackles across 3 games through Origin. So his missed tackle count is still through the roof, no matter where he plays or who he plays for. Fortunately enough, though, it didn't matter for Queensland. We got the job done anyway. Alrighty, onto our edges. And like we said, we've got 4 edges that we can play with, and we've got some pretty good options. For me, and I think for you probably as well, we're probably going the same way here in the 4 that we're running with, and that's Kalonga-Matangi, Preston, Katoa, and Young. Do you want to kick us off with why maybe you want to go with your mate Hudson Young, even though there's some sort of potential concern around his fitness level?
Yeah, there is that, osteopubis. He's had the cortisone injection, but the Raiders have managed him pretty well. He's had some nice rest. It's coincided with a bye for the Raiders as well. So he's been named to start. Hopefully that means he's fit and firing. It's more of just a sort of a tolerance and a sort of pain management. But by all reports, not too bad. If I was playing sort of a season-long salary cap type game, I might look at him for a week. But look, we're talking about the guy that's leading the average points for edge forwards. It's a guy that's breaking tackles at will, scoring tries for fun. And the Raiders have a pretty nice matchup there, well rested against the Parramatta Eels. So Penrith put cleaners through them pretty comfortably with a few troops out last round. The Raiders are coming off a fresh bye. Eels don't have a lot to play for. No Mitch Moses. Still Brown's been hooked. Look, I can see a big score happening there for the boys in green and Hutto Young, even if he's at 85 or 90% fitness. We know how much of a tough player he is, and he'll just cart that ball up all day long, and he loves that try line, and I'm sure he's going to find it this round. So, despite the niggling injury, there's just too much upside there in a player of his caliber. But if we do hear anything during the week, like he was maybe limited at training on light duties, or if he he turns up to the ground on crutches or with his leg heavily strapped, then I might think twice. But no, look, I like that play as a bit of upside. But yeah, if anyone wanted to be safe and maybe reduce some risk and didn't run him this week, I can see that happening. But I feel like he'll put on a big score this week and everyone will flock back to him again next week.
Yeah, and as you said, look, Hutto Young, last game against the against the Eels earlier in the season, round 6, he scored 75 points, which included a couple of tries, 6 tackle breaks, and then he also had 35 in base. So I expect a big game again. Let's say, hypothetically, he does come out and he is ruled out an hour before kickoff. Is it just a simple pivot to go with his edge pairing in Hosking, or do you look elsewhere across the park and maybe go to the Kai Pearce-Paul or your Beau Fermor, who have also been pretty attacking upside based this season as well?
Yeah, I see all being really good options. The Hosking call is a really good one. We're looking to pair a lot of halves and edge back rowers at this point of the season when we know that the edge back rowers are a big chance of scoring. Usually it's due to that half. So, there's no secret that we're playing, a Hughes and Katoa combination that's been a lead of late, and a Fogarty Hosking combination with no Hutto Young on the left-hand side. Fogarty's that dominant half there on the right-hand side, meaning we expect, a bit more footy to travel down the right-hand edge, and that's where someone like Hosking will capitalise. He's been almost as good as Eli Katoa and Haumole Olakau'atu under the high ball as well. He's probably, in that top 5 forwards chasing that high ball. So he'd be a great shout. Look, Beau Fermor is on the list there as well. He just gets through his work. The Titans aren't going well, but they've got a few blokes that roll their sleeves up and just run and tackle all day long. And Beau Fermor is one of them. We know that he's a sniff of a try almost every match, and he's scored a double once or twice this season as well. So he's got some nice high attacking upside. He does have the risk of being moved to an edge, to a center's position if one person from the back line goes down. So there's always a little bit of hesitation starting someone like Beau Fermor, but he's going to get through plenty of work. And we know that Dill Lucas has gone down now for the Knights. We know Fletcher Sharp won't be there on the left either. What does that mean? That means that that right side of the field is going to be getting a bit more footy as well. We know that Bradman Best out there on the left is pretty dangerous, but we saw a lot of success for the Knights down the right-hand side with Gags sweeping that way, linking up with Dom Young, and Kai Pearce-Paul can be a big beneficiary of that. He's a big pod. Some people might go for someone like a Gus Crichton instead. So we've got a plethora of options, but we could probably talk about that next week, and there'll be 2 or 3 points between a lot of them this round, and just a try or 2 might separate 4 or 6 of these guys.
And I think it's important that, as coaches going into this round, if you do play Hudson Young or anyone really, you've got to make sure that you've got that pivot option if something does happen and they ruled out last minute or 24 hours before. You don't want to be scrambling, looking for some options last minute and maybe potentially kicking yourself for making that wrong decision. So have a couple of options up your sleeve. We've given some great options there in Hosking, Fermor, Kai Pearce-Paul, and even like you said, Gus Crichton. I think there's nothing wrong with playing him as well. They all sort of get a similar work rate and a similar minutes there. We just think that Hudson Young, Preston, Katoa, they're probably going to have a little bit more upside because of the halves pairing that they've got, and that's why I'm running with Katoa again. You mentioned the Hughes Katoa pairing, and I mentioned at the top of the show, the Storm have gone to another level, gearing up for the finals run, and it's clear through these 2 players that they're leading the pack in that Hughes Katoa combination has been unreal the last probably a month, really. Katoa is averaging 60 points across his previous 4 games, and the last 3 games that Manly have played, they've allowed 50 GDS points to right side edge players. So I think there's just that real good opportunity there for Katoa to have another dig at the line, run his great lines, potentially get a high ball. I think he's lining up against Burbo again, which he's good at missing a couple of tackles. I think he's averaging 2.5 missed tackles per game. So I could easily see Lukey Brooks, unfortunately, he struggles out there as well. So I think Katoa could have a field day there. And it obviously comes off the back of Hughes and a short ball or putting a grubber through. So I'll be looking at stacking that pairing as well. The other player that I'll be playing is Presto. He just is Jacob Preston. He just keeps impressing, and I think now that the Dogs have solidified their halves pairing in Galvin making his way into the side, Toby Sexton obviously been dropped. Galvin will demand plenty of ball there, and they really should feed that right side. And I'll talk a little bit later more about the right side because there's a couple of other options there that you could play as well. But we've already seen Preston cross the line 7 times this season. So I feel like it'll just continue with that average of 55 in base and power, and then there's opportunities for him to score. I think it's silly not to have him in your side.
Yeah, he's been really consistent, really good all season long. And look, the Dogs have made that decision to move on from Toby Sexton. They know that Lachlan Galvin is their future. So now that they've put him into that side, he'll be lining up there on the right hand side, and they're obviously going to work on that combination. That's going to be a big combination for that football side for a long, long time to come. The left hand side of the field with Big Bill Kickow and Matty Burton is just as dangerous. So if they make half a break down the left, then the ball's going to come to the right. And Lachlan Galvin has made one of the Tigers back rowers, a superstar a couple of those matches, putting him over for a couple of tries. Yeah. And Jacob Preston's, a world ahead of a number of those blokes. So yeah, really like that combination. I don't mind Galvin being beside him. Maybe it won't pay off entirely this round, but we know how good of a player Preston is. He runs some great lines. He chases all those kicks, and the Dogs are big favourites there against the Dragons. So you don't need to outthink the room. I think Preston is a great shout. The only thing that's going to prevent him from scoring a decent score would probably be through injury.
Yeah, that's fair. And then Klonga we talk about him each and every week. He's sort of that player that is a piece of gold where he's playing or available on the edge and playing through the middle. Bigger matchup this week against the Panthers. They're a difficult side to judge, the Panthers. A couple of weeks ago, without their origin stars, they put the red hot Warriors to the sword, and it was a bit difficult to watch from my perspective. But then previous rounds, we've seen the team struggle as well. So it's really hard to work out what they're going to do. I think the big out will be Yo through the middle, and obviously that means Keon can do some damage through the middle of the field. I think a good indication of it, though, is in that Panthers-Warriors game a couple of weeks ago, Aaron Clark still scored 74 points through the middle, where Yo wasn't there as well. So I think it's a nice, easy call there again for me, that Klonga just hitting the ball up through the middle and getting plenty of minutes and potentially getting an offload or a tackle break on top of that will just be some gold there for Keon.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with that. We saw a bit of a down score 2 matches ago, just recently there for Keon, only playing the 60 minutes and a score below 40. But look, he went 6 or 7 games above 60 before that down game, and then back with a nice solid high 50. So yeah, not a real big issue. If we do see his minutes starting to reduce because the Rabbitohs are looking, out of finals contention, or looking at planning for next season and giving blokes like him a bit of a rest and seeing what they've got in some other guys on their list, then that might be when we look at moving elsewhere from Keon. But until we see some signs of that actually eventuating, he's a player alongside sort of Payne Haas or Terrell May that if you leave out, he can certainly go big with the work rate, and then he can bust over for a try, which he's done a number of times already this season.
The other thing for me, as you said, like the minutes are reducing a little bit, but you look at the makeup of the bench, they've got Lewis Dodd and Mamazalis there as well. So I think there's going to be plenty of minutes for those boys up front, because Hubner and Kepi are on the bench too. So that rotation, I think, is going to be really interesting. But I think Keon's going to play big minutes again. And I think they've got an opportunity to dust up the Panthers after they've had a couple of big wins, and no Nathan Cleary, no Yo. So it'll be really interesting to see how the Rabbitohs go, considering they haven't had a lot of success this season.
Okay, don't mind that shout. Bit of an upset brewing, Dill thinks.
We'll see. Sif Kanga, he's running with Presto and Fermor, so great to see he's chasing that Preston upside, and then Fermor, the interesting one there, the pod. I like it. So good on you, Sif Kanga. Thank you for commenting. Remember, if you have a question, you got a matchup you want to know about, please put it in the chat and we'll try and get to it when we can. Alrighty, let's jump across to halves. And wowee, 1 week I don't play Nico Hines, and he goes and has an absolute banger of a game. First time he's hit 100 points this season, and very few people played him. And who would have thought it was coming? Our mate Wet Bandits played him, and he played him alongside Cleary, and that was the reason he won the contender matchup. So it puts the thought in my mind: do I go Hines this week, or do I stick with that combination of Ali Katoa and Jerome Hughes? And that's sort of where I'm tossing up at the moment. The thing I really don't like is chasing last week's points. I've talked about it quite a few times. I'm a little bit nervous when I come to that. But the other thing I think for me is, he scored 100 points in Nicho Hynes, but he also had a 51, a 53, and a 46 the week before, the 3 weeks previous. So that's more in line with his season average. The upside for him is that the Roosters have allowed an average of 50 GDS points to right halves for the season. The downside is the last 4 or 5 games for the Roosters, they've limited right halves to only 25 points. So I could see potentially Nicho Hynes having a bit more of a struggling game there. We've obviously seen Adam Fanua-Blake not get as much minutes and as much possession. And as a result, maybe there's not as much go forward. Whereas on the other side, we've obviously seen Brayley uptick that as well. So I'm not sure what that means for Hynes in this game. But I think for me, that's the reason why I'm leaning towards Hughes and has really good matchup this week.
Yeah, the Hynes shout is a tough one, particularly if you're someone like us who didn't play him last week, leaving that spot open for Nathan Cleary with the expectation that he was going to get a start there against the Eels, and then that turning absolute pear-shaped with a late switch to Adam Reynolds for a 30 or something. But look, do we go back to the well and hope Nicho can repeat that score? Look, he's probably not going to score back-to-back tons, but what he did show us is that he brought back his running game. He ran 134 meters, and that was the most he's run so far this season. In doing so, he broke 3 tackles, which doesn't sound like a lot, but he hasn't broken 3 or more tackles since round 6. He'd had a lot of 1, 0, or 2 tackle break matches, and the extra running meters are obviously going to coincide with a lot more opportunities to break tackles, score tries, and offload the footy, which is exactly what we saw happen there against the Dolphins. Look, he's still kick meters are still hovering around that 300 mark, with Trindle taking on a lot more of that responsibility, which is a bit frustrating. We could normally bank in a lot more points just from his boot, but look, he's kicking goals for the Sharkies. They're still a really good attacking team. He's probably feeling a lot more confident after that win last week. And, there's a lot of really poor press written about him at no fault of his own. It's just because he has started his career so good down there at the Storm. And then he was, made to look like a bit of a scapegoat there for the Blues when he was thrown on there at centre and missed a tackle where the Maroons ended up going through to win a match. I think he's, been really poorly portrayed through the media, and he might not be playing as good as he has previously, but that game will certainly give him a little bit of confidence, and I'm hoping that sort of kickstarts him and his and the Sharkies run for the finals. It is obviously a tough matchup. Those stats that you mentioned just before, you'd probably put a line through a half playing against a team defending that well against other halves. But look, he's in a bit of form. They're playing at home, and they're a different team at home. He's excellent at home. Blake Brayley's in some form. He's that third or fourth half. I think Fogarty and Jerome Hughes are certainly the 2 out in front there. It's probably down to that third spot: Nicho Hynes, Jaden Campbell, Isaiah Katoa. The good thing is we can run out 3 or 4 teams in GameDay squad in the different competitions that you can play in. So, look, maybe rank them in order of who you think's going to score best, and play that one in the competition that you have the most pride in, or you're doing the best in, and play some of the others in the other comps, just in case Nicho has a down game and you're hitting yourself in the head going, I knew he wasn't going to score well again. But if you only put him in one team, but we say that all the time, and then he goes out and he scores a massive one, and we go, why don't we just plug him in all of our teams, or But when we've got really good options in Jaden Campbell and Isaiah Katoa, there's every opportunity that they could score just as well or even more than Nicho Hynes. It's probably just the fact that both of those teams are struggling a little bit in terms of player personnel. We know how thin that Dolphins pack is, and halves can only go forward when their pack is going forward as well. And Titans aren't winning many games either, and Jaden Campbell's come back from injury, and the boys in the middle have to get rolling for him to do a lot off the back of that as well. And hopefully the return of David Fifita is beneficial for Jaden Campbell. But look, things are a little bit more positive down there in the Shire, and that probably means Nicho is probably a little bit more likely to score well, or at least get a decent enough floor and not go too low.
Yeah. And I think that's where I'm sort of leaning at the moment as well, that Hynes is probably that fourth option for me. Jaden Campbell is probably that fifth option. So I think I'll play a combination of Hynes and Campbell with the Fogarty, Katoa, Hughes. matches up as well across some of those competitions. Michael Cozzy, good to see him here. Cozzy's Posse. I think I must have been under a rock. I've only just picked up myself a Silver Cleary and did not even realise he is not playing. Yeah, that flop in Nathan Cleary, who can't even get a start in the Panthers side, is not playing this week. So we've got to look elsewhere. And I think we've got two clear options, and you touched on both of them in Fogarty up against the Eels, and then also Hughes playing up against Manly as well. Fogarty, in his last 3 games, he's averaging over 600 kicking meters, over 20 tackles, and 3 goals per game. So I expect pretty similar stats there from Fogarty. Like you talked about, the Eels have got a lot going on at the moment. There are a lot of outs. There are a lot of dropping. So I think it's going to be a big match up there for the Raiders, who are, again, pushing themselves for potentially a minor premiership. Look, I know we talked about Rugby League 26 at the start of the show with the PlayStation Xbox game coming out tomorrow. When they did their trailer reveal, they had the Dogs and Raiders in the grand final as their trailer reveal. So if that's keep an eye on that. If that's a prediction, who knows, that might happen. But I think, Fogarty, I think, is just an easy option. Cleary, as you said, came off the bench last week and racked up 70 GDS points in a half. So, who knows what Fogarty could do in a whole game up against the Eels that are really struggling. And they've allowed an average of 50 GDS points to right halves across this season. So it should be a really good matchup there. The other one that I really like, as we said, is Hughes. And I think that's going to be a big game for me, watching Hughes against Manly. He's had an increase in his GDS scoring over the last month or so, from about 43 points per game to almost 65, around that 64 mark. It does coincide with Munster being on Origin duties to an extent. There was a couple of games where they did play together. However, it still just seems that Hughes has probably shouldered a little bit more responsibility across the park. He's increased his kicking meters, averaging from 300 before the last month to 500 per game. So that's huge for those base stats. We've also seen an uptick in his try assists and even the tackle breaks as well. So he's running the ball a little bit more and he's looking for opportunities to put people over the line. So I think for me, it's a nice, easy one. The big stat that got me over the line is that he's up against Manly, who allowed an average of 52 GDS points in the last month to right halves. So that's double what Hines' opposition and the Roosters have allowed in the last month. So I think it's a pretty simple option to go with Hughes over Hines. It'll be that third one in Katoa that might come back to bite us a little bit. But Izzy Katoa is still playing really well. Last time out against the Cowboys, he scored 69 GDS points. It was actually his half partner that scored more. He scored 82. But I think Katoa, again, I'll be backing him probably over the Hines-Campbell shout. Cowboys have been pretty vulnerable all season to both sides of the field in terms of halves, so I don't expect this game to be much different. The Dolphins have been up and down all season. They'll probably really want a big game here down at Suncorp tomorrow night. Katoa's average has taken a bit of a hit as well, so he'll want to get back into that sort of high 50s, high 60s low 60s that we've seen him average over the past. The Cowboys have also allowed an average of 53 to left halves in the last month. So I think that'll be a big game there for Katoa. So I'll be banking on those three, but Hines, Campbell, I think are really close to that as well.
Mel wants to know what you think the margin of tomorrow night's game might be between the Cowboys and Dolphins there. What do you reckon?
Well, I'm going to say it's going to be a close one. I think it's going to be high scoring, but I'd say the Dolphins by 8.
Okay, I had 7 in my mind. She only needs to know the margin, so you don't have to lock a team in.
Okay.
I'm going margin of 7, Melissa. Right. I see a field goal and then maybe a late try to seal it. Sif Kanga likes what you said about Fogarty and Hughes. I will let you in on a secret, Sif Kanga. You can actually play a third half as well. You just got to look at that bench position and you can throw another half in there as well. You'll get a lot more points by throwing one of those guys that we've spoken about into that third half spot. And Tommy H thinks this could be the start of a Hines hot run. He's on a roll already, 1 from 1. He's got another home game there at Shark Park. Sharkies are rolling. They haven't had any complaints of injuries or suspensions through Origin, so that team's fairly stable over the last couple of rounds. So I can see that happening for sure, Tom, and he'll feature in 1 or 2 of my sides without a doubt. I do really quickly just want to touch on Jerome Hughes. He actually looks even better without Ryan Pappenhausen there at the back. He's had some big scores with Pappy this year, but his scores without Pappy this year and last year have been fantastic. Last year, he had scores of 60, 76, 58, 61, and 97 at the back end of the year without Pappy. So, yeah, like you said, he shoulders a bit more responsibility. Normally, you might just look out the back and see Pappy's flying mullet out there and say, here you go, mate, you do what you want. But now he's looking out the back and he's seeing Nick Meaney a step or two later than he normally would see Pappy, and, decides to have a run himself. And maybe that's why, he's shouldering a bit more responsibility than giving the footy to Nick Meaney. But look, talking about Nick Meaney, is he going to get a start for you in the centres?
I think so. I think he it's hard not to play him after his first 2 games at fullback for the season. He's averaging 81 over the last 2 weeks. So it's hard not to go to Meaney again. He's seeing double the amount of running meters. He's also broken 17 tackles in the last 2 weeks. And then obviously he's got the goal kicking with Pappenhausen not there. So I think that output's hard to ignore. The concern obviously is Manly limiting fullbacks across the last month. They've actually limited fullbacks to only 23 GDS points in the last month.
Wow.
So that's a bit of a concern. But like I said, I'm going to keep banging on about the Storm and their run home. I think that they're going to play some big games over the next 4 or 5 weeks and solidify themselves in that top 4 spot. Potentially knocking out maybe the Warriors and even the Broncos there in the top 4 as well. I'm a little bit concerned, but I think that the Storm will be, right near the top by the end of it. And I think it starts here. So I think Nick Meaney is going to be a great option. All the other center options, though, that we've got, there's a number of options that we could go with that we've listed there. Obviously, Farnworth's a no-brainer again, and we'll probably touch on him a little bit further. But Val Holmes, Bradman Best, you touched on. Dane Gagai getting the start at fullback again. Alamotti probably gets the kicking tee, although we would love Dill Edwards to get that.
Yeah,
there's a whole range of options. Garrick back as well off the bye. So there's plenty of options there that we could look at. And all of those options actually have a better matchup on paper against the opposition than Nick Meaney does. So that just gives me a little bit of concern because I'm a big matchup guy, but I think it's hard to ignore those stats. 17 tackle breaks in 2 weeks is just ridiculous. And then, yeah, like I said, getting the goal kicking as well is probably just that cherry on top for me.
And that 68-point average, yeah, it includes 2 tries, but look, no try assists. No line break assists, got a couple of line breaks in there and obviously kicking the goals, but that's what you're going to expect from a goal kicking fullback in a team as good as the Melbourne Storm. 255 and 212 run meters.
Crazy.
He'd barely gone above 100 for the last 2 months of the season. Outside of that massive round 1 game where the Storm absolutely touched up the heels who didn't get off the bus when he ran for 190 meters, he hadn't cracked 110 more than once. So yeah, those run meters are just through the roof. And when you're running the footy twice as much and getting twice as many meters, you're going to break some tackles. And he's doing that really well at fullback when they put a bit of kick pressure on him, knowing that he's not the usual fullback. They're putting a bit more pressure and you got 1 or 2 guys sort of breaking out of the line and a little bit of footwork once he catches the footy and they lay a hand or 2 on him and then he gets through them. That's a nice, easy tackle break straight away. So yeah, the matchup isn't great on paper, but the Storm are a different beast down there at Amy Park. Manly, we're not too sure how their combinations are going to be going. They've actually been pretty poor off the bye this year, so it wouldn't surprise to see them being a little bit slow or a little bit rusty as well. And yeah, the Storm are on absolute fire. Harry Grant returns. Got Munster back. We're just waiting for Pappy for them to be fully fit, but while Nick Meaney's at one of the best fantasy positions in the game, then I'm definitely starting him when he's out of position. I don't mind a Dane Gagai shout. His move to fullback was outstanding. He broke 1,000 tackles as well and linked up really nicely with Tommy Young there on the right-hand side. It's just the Knights team is not really inspiring. Their forward pack's pretty poor. They've lost arguably their 3 best players in KP, Fletcher Sharp, Dill Lucas. Look, it's tough going there for the Knights, but we know Dane Gagai, no matter what jersey he throws on, when he's got the footy in his hand, he'll just run 100 miles an hour and he'll break tackles fairly frequently. And he doesn't have to worry about his defense too much or missing tackles. He can just run the footy and break tackles. He's not the most pretty fullback to watch, but boy, he can get the job done. And if the Knights are going to do any good at the back end of this year, it's probably him being a big part of it. I would love for him to have had the kicking tee like Nick Meaney, but looks like Jackson Hastings has that. We did see Dane Gagai kicking a little bit during the middle of the season. And look, if he had the number one on his back and goal kicking, then that would be a completely different story because he breaks tackles for fun. But yeah, maybe that goal kicking at a bit better side in the Storm gives that edge to Nick Meaney.
Yeah. And look, on his teammates, so Sif Kang has said that he's running Farmworth and Best. And then Tom has responded, and it's one thing I was going to touch on. Look at his last 6 games. I'm actually going to talk about his last 7 games. So Best's scores in the last 7 games has been 50, 30, 66, 18, 72, 73, 29, and 78. So, Tom H., you are bang on. This is a low score week. He's going high, low, high, low. So I think I'm going to be fading Best just for that reason, because I love those kind of stats where we can see that trend happening. He's also up against the Warriors, both Gagai and Best, and the Warriors allow sort of 43 to 45 to both fullbacks and centres, which is a pretty decent result, a pretty decent score. But I think there's more upside, as we touched on with Nick Meaney, and then obviously way more upside in someone like Herbie Farmworth, who also breaks tackles for fun. Just a stat for him, he's got 111 tackle breaks, 2 behind James Tedesco, who's leading the competition in tackle breaks. Farmworth has played 1 more game than Tedesco at the moment, though. From here, make a prediction. Who ends up with more tackle breaks between those 2 players at the end of the season?
I'm sticking with my boy Teddy.
Yep, I agree. The face of GDS, he's doing it for all the coaches of GDS. He'll break another 40 tackles. He'll surpass 150 for the season at least. Jay Boney's just jumped on. Good on you, Jay Boney. Welcome again. No Dewey or Dwayhe Dewey. I'm not sure how he pronounces his name anymore, but no Adam Dewey for us this week. He was a bit of a surprise packet last week up against the Warriors. At times they looked unreal, the Tigers, but for me, it's just that inconsistency that we've seen throughout the season with Dewey, and he's been kicking goals, which we love to see, goal kicking centers. But yeah, just for me, it's just that inconsistency. I don't know sort of where I'm at with Dewey each and every week. I don't know what kind of game I'm going to get from him. So for me, I'm just going to fade him just because I can't guess which Adam Dewey is coming out.
I know there's probably a bit of chat about Adam Dewey this week, given he's been named in that 13 jersey. He hasn't started a game at lock or in the forward pack for his entire NRL career. So you've just got to wonder how much gas he might have in the tank. And look, if he's an 80-minute ball playing back rower, playable in the centre position, then he'll be a guy that we'll be talking about at length for the weeks to come. But there's so much uncertainty around his role, his minutes. It looks good on paper, but when we've got blokes like Herbie Farmworth, Nick Meaney kicking goals there for the Storm, I don't think we need to race ahead and stick Adam Dewey into our team this week. I think he's going to be a big watch there at lock, seeing how many minutes he gets and what he's sort of doing with the footy. Is he taking the line on, or is he running and then passing to some of the halves outside him? It'll be a really interesting watch there. So a nice shout there by Jay Boney. He certainly could be someone that we talk about in the weeks to come. And if you're a bit of a risk taker and like that out of position player there, that doesn't get much better than a lock who could be on the field for 80 minutes, being plugged into your centre position. So, Jay Boney, don't like that, mate. Pretty good footy brain on you, obviously.
Not just the lock playing 80 minutes, but a potential goal-kicking lock playing 80 minutes. When was the last time we saw a fantasy-relevant goal-kicking lock playing 80 minutes?
Corey Parker.
Maybe Mr. Fantasy himself. Maybe. So, if we can see that from Dwayhe Dewey, however he wants to pronounce his last name, that would be unreal. But, for me, just a little bit inconsistent throughout the season. No idea what it's going to be like. There plenty of options on the bench for the Tigers as well to give them a spell in Bird, etc. So, fine news there as well. So, I'm just not sure how they're going to play that out. Alrighty, let's jump across to the wingers. And again, we've probably got a few different options to play on the wing this week. But, Karaz returns, Lomax returns, To'o returns from those injury duties. From origin duties. Then we've also got a couple of other options there in Asako and Marky Mark. And then Braden Burns had a pretty big game last week. So there's plenty of options. Where are you looking at the moment? Obviously, we're probably just going to play the 2 wingers again. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, if we didn't have such good fullback options this week with good matchups as well, this could be a week where you look at plugging in a third winger. But it's so tough to do when you've got a number of those really good fullback options that we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, for me, it's going to be Jacob Carraz and Brian To'o. Look, I'd love to put Zachy Lomax in there somewhere, particularly since he's up against the Raiders, and if something mysterious happens and the Eels have a big game and Zach Lomax is a big reason for that, then I want to have at least one Zach Lomax wing card in one of my squads. So I look to maybe throw him in maybe a starter or a classic since I'm out of the comp. But look, Bizarre, Jacob Carraz been scoring unreal all season long. Jacob Carraz has really been scoring his best points when he's been alongside Stephen Crichton there on the right-hand edge. Doggies haven't had Stephen Crichton in a number of matches recently through Origin and then resting. Hopefully they keep Carraz there on the right. He had that one strange game where he moved over to the left. They should still be playing Rinakama there on the left. Hopefully Carraz and Stephen Crichton have that combination there on the right-hand side. And he's been absolutely incredible. That combination has been unreal. And they're playing up and they're coming up against that pretty weak side there with Val Holmes and Sione Finau. And look, we know that Val Holmes is an absolute weapon and a great footballer, but look, he's certainly not up there in the top tacklers or the top tackling centers in the competition either. So I can see that as a plus matchup there for Critter, maybe getting outside Val and drawing in the winger, and that just leaves a nice little passage there for Carraz. And if he scores a double this weekend, that wouldn't surprise. He doesn't need to find the try line to have a big score. He can get it. He can get a score just through his workload, and we know that he'll break tackles. We know that he'll run over 200 meters. He'll offload the footy just about more than any other wingers in the competition, and he's got that upside, that likelihood of scoring outside Critter there. So I think Kiraz is probably the number one winger shout for me this week. But I really like Brian To'o, and look, is he fully fit? He was obviously limping around a little bit in Origin, despite running for another 200 and, or was it 30 or 60 meters or something? Absolutely incredible from him, and seeming to limp, almost every run. But he had that rest last week, which I hope is all he needs to, be fit and firing. He might not be 100%, but maybe an 85 or a 90% Brian To'o against a really sort of understrength and hurting Rabbitohs team. He's likely to run just as many meters as Jacob Carraz is. He'll break as many tackles, and he's just as likely to find the try line there as well. No Cleary for the Panthers, which means their attack might be a little more clunky and not quite as proficient as it might be usually. But I don't think that's going to impact Brian To'o too much. And if he and Carraz combine for 2 or 3 tries between them, that certainly wouldn't surprise.
Yeah, just before I talk about Carraz and To'o, 24-hour mails come through, Dolphins, Cowboys. Sean O'Sullivan, not a big fantasy relevant potentially, but Sean O'Sullivan has been ruled out, and Averillo's moved into the halves with Nafahu coming onto the wing. So if anyone was looking at Jake Averillo as a potential play this week, maybe that's still an option for you now that he's moving to the halves, although I would suggest that Katoa probably just gives more stock into the Katoa taking control of the game even more for tomorrow.
Yeah, I was going to say that if anything, it would probably be good for Katoa. We probably expect Averillo to probably just run a little bit more rather than set up and create things. And Isaiah Katoa will probably do a bit more organising, but certainly a lot more kicking and probably a bit more creative as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, definitely a good shout for Katoa, I think, over Hines or Campbell. All right, Carraz, mate, I love Carraz, and I love what the Dogs have done now. They've got Galvin, Preston, Critter, and Carraz on that right side of the field. Well, hopefully, but that should be the lineup there on the right side of the field. That is unreal. That is Manly-esque in terms of their right side. That's should be super dangerous. And as you said, Carraz running over 200 meters per game, 6 tackle breaks per game. Try scoring's dried up a little bit from Carraz, but that potentially could be due to that, that's up and down nature of the Dogs over the last few weeks. They've covered a couple of down games, and we haven't seen Carraz get over the line. But like you said, it's because of his offloads, etc., that he's really getting the job done. Just on that, he's had 38 offloads, and the next best winger is on 27. in Greg Marju. So he's well out in front there for offloads. The other thing I really like, and you touched on the matchup there with the Dragons, they've allowed an average of 41 GDS points to all right wingers this season. In the last month, they've been more vulnerable, though, with that pairing of Holmes and Finau on the wing. They're allowing an average of 55 to right wingers. So there's been an uptick there as well. So I think Carraz will take advantage of that. Then on To'o, I think it's just an easy play again. Look, he's only had one game without Cleary this season. And during that game, he still scored 54 GDS points. So I'm not concerned that Cleary's not there. If anything, maybe there's an advantage a little bit as well. He might get more involved and come through the middle a little bit more as well. He's had a couple of low-scoring games this season, like most other wingers. So we've got to obviously temper our expectations that at the end of the day, the wing position is very volatile. We've seen some really low scores throughout some of the best wingers in the competition. But he's had 4 scores out of his 7 or 8 that he's played this season above 50. So we know that he can be dominant. We saw his dominance over Origin, so hopefully he can bring that try-scoring ability back against this game against the Rabbitohs, who are susceptible to left wingers. They allow an average of 54 over the last month. So I think Bizzer will have plenty to say in this game as well.
And you still can't forget about that game last year against the Cowboys. Can you remember how many tackles he broke in that game?
Oh, I want to say it was 18.
It's 21.
21. Far out.
So what's that? 63 points.
63 points.
From tackle breaks, not even the run meters. That is incredible. If you can put someone in your wing position that has the ability to break 21 tackles and score 63 points from that one stat alone, you're laughing. We've got Fantasy Fanatics in the house. G'day, Bales, doing some really good things over there in the AFL space. Not quite as good as a good friend of ours running amok. He always comes into work on a Monday and lets us know that he's got one over you, Bales. So you got a bit to do to catch him. I think you might have him in GDS in a couple of those comps, but he's coming for you, mate. There's a nice little battle ensuing there. Thanks for joining us in the Rugby League show. Tommy H, have you got a secret winger there, mate, that you're not sharing with us, or do you just not know who that second winger is that you're going to play? Carraz is a lock for you. Who's that second one? And we got Sif Kanga, Carraz, and Lomax. No Bizzer. Could come back to bite him, but I do not mind that Zachy Lomax shout at all.
Just on Zach Lomax, just quickly, a stat there that might make you jump off him. The Raiders allow 32 to right wingers for the season. However, in the past month, they're only allowing 25. So they've really tightened up the defense there. Same with someone like Marky Mark. If you're looking to play him, the Sharks allow 45 to left wingers this season, but it's dropped to 21 in the past month. So a lot of teams are tightening up the defense across the park, particularly against the wingers. So there might not be some options there for you. So just a little bit of a heads up there.
Just quietly, why is Braden Burns so good, but hardly gets any games? 11 tackle breaks last match, 9 back in round 1. He's had 4 tackle breaks, 7 tackle breaks in his other full 80-minute games that haven't been cut short through injury. If you don't have some of those big cards, I know a few of our mates who have just started playing GDS this year don't have the luxury of putting a Carraz or a To'o Lomax into their sides. Gee, someone like Braden Burns does not mind breaking a tackle. I think he might be lining up in the centers this week, which might be a good thing for him. I'm not sure, but thought we had to throw him on the sheet there just in case, because he had a massive score with no attacking return. He had one of the biggest scores for the round of all backs without even crossing the line. Tommy H doesn't know who he wants for winger number 2. Hopefully, we've given you a bit of an idea who you might be able to plug into that spot. Fullback still, we got a plethora of options. Which direction are you heading in?
Well, I don't know. At this stage, I think I've locked in Tedesco, Mitchell, and Edwards, but I am on the fence with almost all 3 of them at the moment. The thing I don't like is playing 2 players in the same position against each other in the same game. That's something I try to avoid, but the stats are pretty hard to ignore. Latrell up against the Panthers, they've been pretty poor against the fullbacks all season. However, in the last month, they've increased their average against the fullbacks to allowing 60 GDS points. So I think Mitchell could potentially have a field day. We know he had a below average Origin performance, and he'll probably be looking for an opportunity to redeem himself. He's averaging 60 himself this season, and it mostly comes in base and power. There's a few attacking stats in there, but we know that he's got that massive game in him, that really game-breaking ability to find a tackle break that turns into a line break, that turns into a try assist or a try himself. So he's definitely got that upside there. He also has the second highest average against only Teddy for the fullbacks, and he only has 2 tries to his name this season. Last year he scored 8, so I probably expect a little bit of an uptick in tries, getting over the line, hopefully, from Latrell, heading into the last sort of quarter of the season or third of the season. On the opposite side, we've got Dill Edwards lining up against the Rabbitohs, and it's another player that probably had a below par performance in Origin. He would probably admit that himself. He wasn't as good as what we've seen in the past. However, the matchup data again in this game suggests that he's going to have an absolute field day against the Rabbitohs, who allow 55 GDS points in the last month to fullbacks. I think Edwards is probably a safer bet compared to some others. He plays that real no frills type game, and he scores through those no frills play. We know he will make his 200 plus running meters, his 5 or 6 tackles, and then his 5 or 6 tackle breaks per game. He's actually getting 1 try assist every 2 games, so there's an opportunity he might have another try assist. However, he hasn't played a game this season without Cleary, so it's going to be interesting to see how he goes there.
Yeah, I'm on the same 3, mate. But for me, Teddy looks like the play that I'm most uncertain about. Who would have thought? That just shows how good that matchup between the Bunnies and the Penrith Panthers are going to be with Dill Edwards and Latrell Mitchell absolutely cashing in for a monster of fantasy points. Latrell Mitchell's such a competitor, even though they're probably going to fall short here against the Panthers minus Yo and Nathan Cleary. He's still been ripping in. He hasn't scored below 50 since round 8. And, a lot of people give him a bit of stick for, calling him lazy and those sorts of things. But you're not a lazy footballer and score more than 50 fantasy points for 2 months in a row. You've got to be doing something right to be getting up there. And we know that he's got some errors. He might have a bit of a hot head here and there, but when he's got the footy in his hands, he breaks tackles, he puts blokes over the try line, and he can score them himself as well. If the Rabbitohs do score some tries, he's pretty sweet kicking the footy off the tee as well. And the Panthers can let some points in terms of actual rugby league footy. But if there's one place on the field they're conceding points in fantasy, it's that fullback position. You don't need to tell me anymore. Latrell Mitchell is an absolute lock for me. And in that same match, Dill Edwards probably has the kicking tee. We don't know for certain. There is some small likelihood that Paul Alamotti might be kicking goals. He obviously kicked some last week while Nathan Cleary was off the field. He did kick one in was it a prelim or a final last year with Cleary off the field or injured, and Dill Edwards was on the field. But Dill Edwards has also kicked in the regular season last year with Alamotti on the field. What I see happening is Tungo returning next week and Alamotti drawing the short straw and moving out of the team. If they want a backup kicker, if Nathan goes down during a game, then that player is more likely to be Dill Edwards, since he'll be in that team and Alamotti's probably on the outer. So with that in mind, I've got a bit of hope that Dill Edwards does have the kicking tee. When the Panthers score their 4, 5, 6 tries, there's every chance he goes up in 3s for a lot of those as well. Look, he doesn't need the kicking tee to have a big week in terms of fantasy. The Rabbitohs are giving up a monster amount of points there against the fullbacks. You've already mentioned that. And he's already had those scores of 57 and 78 in his last 2. And that Panthers team is red hot, and they're rolling into that deep finals run.
Yeah, nice. Just quickly, Sif Kang has put up Teddy, Trell, and Pap. So the big news is Pappenhausen is not playing this week. He's still got that injury, the calf injury, I believe, and it sounds like he's going to be managing it for the rest of the season. So he might be someone that, if he is named, we don't really look at too much, because that injury could really hinder his output. And there you go. Sef Kang has come back and he's gone Hammer instead, which I think is actually a great option. And that potentially might be another player that I'll be looking at as well. And he comes up against the Cowboys, who have allowed 46.5 throughout the season, but that's increased in the last month to 56.7. So again, they're vulnerable at that fullback position. And like I said, I think that's going to be a high scoring, close game. And Hammer obviously has that much more excitement factor about him than someone like Edwards, who just gets his job done in his meters and tackle breaks. Hammer can break open the play and break open the game anywhere. Outside of that, we actually have some really great options. You've got a couple on screen, and Drinkwater and Weeks, who, they both had some massive games. Weeks in particular has had an unreal last couple of games. There's also a couple of pods potentially based on some stats. Dragons have allowed 60.6 GDS points in the last month to fullback. So Connor Tracy potentially could be an option. We know he's got to probably have a try assist and a try to get something like that. He doesn't really do it through his workload. Storm have allowed 58 to fullbacks. Lehigh Hopewade is lining up there, so that could be an option for your wingers as well. And that's just in the last month. And then the Dogs have allowed 57 to fullbacks in the last month. So Gutherson up against the Dogs could be an option too. We haven't really talked about Gutho for a while, since he burnt, I think, both of us back in round 10 or something like that. And I don't think we want to talk about him again, but they're all options as well.
Gutherson?
Yeah, exactly. If you're worried about James Tedesco and his tough matchup with the Sharks, which I'm a little bit nervous, but look, Teddy's on the way to being fullback of the year, and I'm happy to continue running with it until I see anything other. As we said, 113 tackle breaks this season, well above anybody else really, except for Farnworth, who's had that one extra game. The issue is the Sharks have been defending really well the past month. They've dropped their average against for fullbacks from 41 to 36. So the 5 points difference there. It could be, it's not huge, but it could just mean that Tedesco doesn't score as well as what we would hope compared to some of those other players that potentially could find a way into some of our squads across a number of competitions. Look, the upside is that Teddy's still on a 4-round average of 63, almost 64 points. So we know that he can get it done, and that's up against the Dragons, Tigers, Cowboys, and Knights. So they're not great defenders. So the Sharks have got a lot better defense in them than some of those teams. But I still think Tedesco is one of the best fullbacks in the competition, if not the best. And I'll continue running the face of Game Day squad until he shows me otherwise.
Yep, absolutely. Same as me. Dill, don't suppose you got any advice for people in the same position as Fantasy Fanatics here? He still won't forgive himself or forgive Pappy, that is, for missing that match last week. Look, there was a bit of mail around. What was it? We got 24 hours in advance. Was it the last two matches? But someone like Fantasy Fanatics who ended up having that cost them a place in the Classic Cup. What can they do to stay on the laid outs and the information that's going to help them with their fantasy team?
Yeah, the best thing to do is to head over to Game Day Squad Discord, join that, and I do my very best to post teams both the 24-hour before and then the hour before kickoff, so that you get the most up-to-date details of who's in and who's out. I try to do my best for that. Obviously, life gets in the way at times, so I apologize if I don't get a squad in. But you're right, it was 24 hours before for both of those outs for Pappy. So definitely, if there's a big out like that, I will post it in Discord. So head on over to the Game Day Squad Discord, join up. Even if you've never used Discord before, it's really easy to use, and you can just follow. You don't have to comment at all, and just check out those posts there to make sure that you're around all of that last minute information. All right, these are our squads. We've talked about a bunch of players. There's not a huge amount of difference. I think when I submitted my team this morning, I had Holmes still in my side then. I've obviously jumped off Holmes and I've moved to Nick Meaney as well. So the only real differences we're looking at there is Jerome Hughes, King and Katoa. But then again, we've talked about you potentially making some changes as well. And we might even just be down to one difference between our teams. So
I think so.
Very, very interesting.
Do we know who you're up against this round in the Classic Cup?
I haven't had a chance to look yet. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Generally, I go and have a bit of a look at how they've performed over the last few weeks in their matchup. So I might do that. That might be a job for me tomorrow before settling in for that first game, the cracker, Dolphins versus Cowboys.
Another job for you is having a red hot crack at Brodown Showdown. What is it, 13-6 now, I think?
No, it's 13-6.
Righto, let's go spin the wheel. Who's winning the prize this week?
Alrighty. Let's get into the wheel. So as we do each and every week, if you comment who you think is going to win the Brodown Showdown, you get it right, you will jump onto the wheel here, and you could win some great prizes in some cards. So we've got the wheel up. Can you see that, Stu?
Gotcha. Yep.
Unreal. So let's spin it here. All of these people pick Stu to win the Bro Down Showdown. And as a result, it's looking like it will be Cozzy's Posse taking it out again. Congrats, Cozzy. Let's go over now and have a look at what we're going to open. So I'm going to jump down to my packs here. I'm going to share this tab instead, and I'm going to jump down. And because it's the 20th show, we are going to open a unique pack. We do this every 5 shows.
Ooh,
so we've got a 3-pack unique. 2 cards are going to go to Stu, 1 card to Cozzy Posse. Here we go. All right, Stu, where are we going first? For either your cards or for Cozzy?
I want the 2 edges, please. Let's see who's on the outside, and we can give Cozzy his prize last.
Okay, we've got Atkinson on one side, and we have a Willison on the other.
Oh,
all righty. So what are we hoping for here? We have got Salkuru. Unlucky. Sorry, Cozzy, that's not a great pack.
You might have
let me open one more. Let me open one more pack for you. I'll open a 3-player common, and you can have all 3 cards here because that is not a great pack at all.
Oh, what an animation!
Oh, wow! Here
Give
we
us
go.
a legend.
Here we go. We've got a silver sharp. Great start.
What a card!
There's the diamond there. So let's come back to that. We've got a Jeremy Marshall King.
What
silver.
A pack!
How good! And here we go. We have a Val Holmes diamond. Wowee! There you go. Look at that. Good on you, Cozzy. That is great work. I'm so happy that I opened that pack for you. That is much better than whatever rubbish we opened in that last pack. So all 3 of those are yours. Good on you, mate. Thank you for supporting us. And it's easy as that. All you have to do is either comment in a moment when we show you the next Bro Down Showdown for round 20, or comment once the show has been finished over on our YouTube page, or even our Spotify when the show gets uploaded tomorrow morning. Really simple. Comment who you think is going to win. If you pick the right player, the right coach, you will automatically go into that draw, and you could be as lucky as Cozzy and win some Unreal cards.
So there is the Bro Down Showdown selections for round 20. If you think Dill's going to get back in the winner's circle with his selections of Blake Brayley over Harry Grant, Jacob Carraz over my Brian Toto, and his Jacob Preston over Hutto Young, you type Dill's name in, but if you want a better crack at packs and cards, type Stu into that comment section right now. I think this will be a close one. We still really haven't had have we ever had a 3-0 win? I can't remember.
We've had one. You had one earlier in the season, I think round 3,
19 rounds. That's insane. So it's been close most weeks. Comment now, either Dill or Stu. And those players go head-to-head. So it's not total points. It's just Blake Brayley against Harry Grant, Carraz against Toto, and Preston against Hutto Young. We should have a 2-1 result or a 3-0 result. We got plenty coming in for Dill.
How good.
Sif Kanga, Tom H, Cossy's Posse. For Dill, we got a couple of Stews rolling in now with Jay Boney and Melissa. Poor Jay Boney. I think he comments Stu almost every single week. But I don't think I've seen his name come up there in the winner's circle just yet. But yeah, you're getting close. Each loss is another loss closer to a win. We got Fantasy Fanatics there going for Stu as well.
Good stuff. All righty, that is it. That is our show once again. Absolute cracker. That hour flies by. Love chatting footy with you, mate, and love getting involved with the community. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. Next week, we'll be coming to you same time, Wednesday, 23rd of July at 7 p.m. That is round 21. As we've talked about, we are getting so close to the end of the season. It is ridiculous, but that doesn't mean that fantasy is over. There should be a final season happening as well with Rugby League. Then cricket's well on its way. Plus, we've got that massive announcement coming soon. So there is plenty of fantasy sport to get around over the next couple of months. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your support. Still, the names are flying in here. Ryan Pitt's going for Stu. Matty P's going for me. That's great work. I love it. That pack has really ignited some comments. It's good to see. I love that.
Great.
Thank you very much. Look, those are our picks for this week. Hopefully you get a bit of a win. Good luck, mate, in shoring up your prize card across either champion or challenger. Hopefully I get a win in Classic Cup as well. Thank you very much. Don't forget, sign up if you haven't done so yet. FBRL25 to get that 3 9-player rare common pack. Just for doing so. Thank you very much. Have a good night, and we will talk to you soon. Good luck this weekend.
Thanks, Dill.
Thanks, mate.
See you guys.
See you later.